Hi guys. So I thought I'll try something different this time. We're gonna have like a little conversation in a random place in Durban, Germany. Why are you here, May? Why are you in freaking Durban, Germany? That's a great question. That's another video, because this video, I think, is more about outgrowing the people we love, places we love, and maybe even the life we thought for ourselves. I've been having these conversations not only with myself, but my partner as well, and even friends. Like, I don't know where you guys are like in life, but just this feeling of a lot of transition and a lot of new changes and new wants and new desires and building new paths, and how do you best go about that? Like, did you hear that? Beautiful nature. Okay. I was thinking about that, like, how do we almost mourn like the fact that we are outgrowing certain situations or people even in our lives, like people we really care about, people we hope would go the long journey with us but maybe can't. This also goes for in relationships. You might be with someone who you feel isn't growing anymore, and but that's not even fair to say. Maybe they are growing, but they're not growing in the direction that you are growing, right? And you have to depart with love. And I think that's one of the weirdest and saddest realization in life, like understanding that not everybody's going to take the journey with you. Not everybody's going to make it with you where you want to go. And sometimes you're going to have to say goodbye to people, goodbye to opportunities, and goodbye to places, because you are growing in a different way, in a different direction. Your values might change, your desires in life might change. You might change, right? And then when you do that, you might want to be somewhere else, and you might even share that new part of yourself or that new version of yourself, and you might even experience rejection for that person, those desires, those wishes, those hopes. In some situations, people might even think that you're regressing, right? Like you're going backwards. You are failing the plan or the path that they had in mind for you and your life. And I think that's where the most important thing comes into play. You have like to be like, I'm all by myself, but I trust myself, and I have to trust myself enough for my path to be worth going and worth following, even if I might have to follow it by myself, even if I might have to go where I want to go by myself. But I say all of that, and I don't really think it's easy just because we can rationalize it. It can still be painful. It can still require us to carve out time to grieve that new reality. And I was thinking about that as well. Like, I talked about this before, but like, even with maybe friendships and people are just doing different things, like different careers, different life posts that they're trying to meet compared to you. So many ways that you recognize that, hey, this is as far as I can go with you, and let's not regret the journey, because we're not going to go the whole way. I think that's also important to recognize, Let's not regret, let's not resent what we have experienced so far just because it cannot keep lasting, just because it cannot keep going. You guys have followed me for a long enough time, and you know that I've moved a lot, I've changed a lot, at least for the OGs, I've changed a lot. At least I think I have. Maybe, like I said before, like I feel like my core is always going to be the same. I'm always going to be the person I was in my heart since I was young. But that person just expands, and that person gets more confident and more assured and more directed in what feels aligned and what doesn't feel aligned. And then I try my best to take the next best step, as I always say, even in my sessions. Like, you might not know the whole path, but you can at least take the next best step. Listen to this, it's so beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? This is like my favorite time of the day to film, like all the little creatures, the beautiful light, just the calmness of an ending day. If you are going through that as well, and you are realizing that you are maybe going on a big path by yourself, I think sometimes we can also experience that when we maybe make certain decisions in our lives. Like, for example, if you choose to change the way you eat, but everyone in your family or your partner eats a certain way and they don't want to change, which is fair because everybody should choose for themselves what makes sense, right? But that can also still feel, even though convicted, you can still feel a sense of loneliness that you're doing something by yourself. For me, another path I had to let go of, as I've shared here, was being religious. And I come from especially because the only family that I'm closest to is my mother's family. And everybody's very religious there. And their whole worldview is based on their religion, which I can respect and accept. But that can also make you feel lonely because I think, especially the way I've grown spiritually and the way I see the world, and there's so many things that I know if I were to share, it's a limited understanding or way of integrating that. I remember having a conversation with my mom where I say that in my worldview, there is space for your worldview, but in your worldview, there is only space for your worldview. And that's also what I felt like when I was a newly non-Christian, if we can say it like that, was that sense of like loneliness, but also that sense of excitement to discover what could be found, to discover. I think in a way, all of that just really made me, from an early age, with every choice I've made and every time I've grown because I've learned something new, and then I've integrated. I've always wanted to be someone who doesn't just collect knowledge, but makes time for integration as well. And you can't integrate everything you learn, but I've always made an effort at least to make sure that the things that are very important to me, new knowledge that comes my way, that I also let it change me. I let it shift how I see life and how I move through life. And leaving religion for me was another way where I had outgrown something that was my whole foundation. Like, it was everything that was everything that was anything. And having to forge your own way, like without a lot of guidance, like I couldn't pinpoint any family member who I could say, okay, that person is also no longer religious. And that was maybe even the training ground for me, that this feeling of always having had to forge my own way and then getting comfortable if you're forging your own way with sometimes the loneliness you might find or might feel, but also very, very important, also the new communities and new people that you will also be connected to. It's not all bad. It's not all, you by yourself and alone forever. It's just more that transition and that realization that you can't take people with you when you grow. You can't take as you grow. I shouldn't say when you grow, because everybody's growing in their own way. You can grow into new spaces, into new people, into new experiences, into new standards, into new realities, into new relationships, into new perspectives and worldview. You can grow into other spaces that already exist and already are there, ready to embrace you. And I remember, like, that's why one reason also why I love the internet so much, because when you didn't have maybe that community outside of you, like you didn't have people you could meet up, let's say when you became plant-based, or you left religion, or you found another aspect of your identity, at least online you could meet people. There's all kinds of people. I'm not saying all of them are amazing in whatever community, but you had a chance to not feel so alienated, even if it was only digitally. And then you could maybe meet up with those people and start creating community with people that are also more aligned with where you are growing as a person. There is this, I think it's an Arabic writer and poet who said something that really stuck by me. And he talks about how children don't come from you, they come through you, and how we should love our children from that perspective, that they're already their own people and we just get to host and bring them into this world. And I think that can be a very scary thing, maybe even for a lot of parents, because we would like to imagine, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine that something that is flesh of your flesh, bone of your bone, you want it to become closer to what you are, a manifestation of you, or maybe your desires for that being and their development. But you can't always guarantee that. And I also try to empathize with the other side, like seeing your own child become more and more different, so different, and there's only so much room you can make space for, and how challenging and maybe even sometimes painful that is when you feel like they're so removed from your reality, or the reality you raised them in, that you don't recognize them anymore, and yet they are your child and you're going to love them forever. But you don't know who they are, and you don't know this world they're diving into, or maybe this way of living that they are embracing, right? I can empathize with that also being scary in some way. Not only when we outgrow and we go forth, but also when there are people who still are maybe aligned with where we were before, and they see us go forth and go our own way. Like, that must also be painful. And then there are times where people can't come with you, not because they don't believe in what you're doing or your new perspective or new reality, but because they're afraid, and they can't take the risk with you. They can't take that big of a chance with you. And you have to decide that whatever you've discovered or whatever you want to do is important and big enough that you're okay doing it by yourself. Or maybe it doesn't always have to be that dramatic, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's just getting to do things alongside each other. Maybe we don't get to do it together anymore, but we can do it alongside each other. And that's another way that we make space for the parts of us that grow beyond where we were before. Anyway, I just wanted to share that with you guys, because this is also where I am in life right now. And also, it's both exciting and sobering and humbling. But I feel like I've grown into like a really brave girl. I feel like I've done a lot of brave shit, being forced to do a lot of brave shit. So I trust the path. I trust myself as best as I can. And I trust that I'm not alone even when I think I'm alone in something. Luckily, I do have community in other ways that are more aligned, but it's still hard when your core people become less and less aligned to some degree. Anyway, I'd love to hear how you guys have experienced that. It would be beautiful if you shared your experiences with that as well. Because as I always say, I know I'm not an alien. That's why I'm encouraged to share, because I know whatever I feel, I'm not the only one who feels that. And I've benefited so much from being able to relate to other people. So if what I've shared is something that you relate to, and you're also figuring out, forging your own way, your own perspective, your own path, and you have maybe even no role model to follow, like at least not in your core surrounding, and just to know that I understand that can be very scary, but there's a lot of us embarking on scary paths and doing it one step at a time and hoping to meet you along the way in whatever that may be. Anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you guys. I hope you're blooming wherever you're planted. And if you're not, I hope you have the courage to remove yourself from whatever soil you're in and into more nurturing, grounding, and bloom-worthy soil. Thank you so much. Bye. Ciao. Ciao, ciao, ciao.